For those who have said that they have felt burned out before, but have managed to find a solution, we'd love to hear from you in the comments how you were able to find a solution, and maybe share some ideas so that other parents can also learn from you and we can also learn from you. So if you would like, you can put that in the comments. We will begin shortly. Hi, Hira. Thank you for being with us today. So a lot of you are saying that you have been feeling burned out. So we hope that today's session will be able to give you some tips and tricks on how you can take care of yourself and potentially build a self-care routine as well. And someone has said they haven't been feeling burned out. So share with us what your, what it is that you're doing. I'm sure a lot of parents would like to hear from you. Yes, cameras and mics are off from your side. So the only people you will be able to see on your screens are the panelists and the host. If you want to say something, add a comment or ask a question, you can do it in the chat box. Just a couple more minutes and then we're going to start. Thank you for being so patient. Okay, so I think we've got enough people, so we're going to start. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here and joining us today. We're so glad to have you, and I would first like to start off by introducing myself. Some of you may have met me, some of you might not know me. So my name is Arid Jafrani, and I am the Emotional Wellbeing Team Leader here at Bayview High School. As most of you know, we introduced formally our Emotional Wellbeing Team last year in an attempt to support and promote the mental health of all the members of our community, from students, staff, and parents. And naturally, the COVID-19 situation has significantly negatively impacted the well-being of a lot of people, adults and children alike. And we wanted to come up with a way to help you support yourself and your children in the best way possible. So for this reason, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the Emotional Wellbeing Parent Webinar Series. This today here is the first session we're doing. And we will be having another one on Friday the 17th for our senior campus, and on the 18th of July on Saturday for our preschool campus. And hopefully after Eid we will also be having some more for our junior schools parents. So I'm really excited about this project, and I really hope that you're able to take away some helpful tips for yourself and for your children. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. So today we have Miss Amna Zuberi. Amna joined us last year in August as our play therapist at the Junior Clifton and KDA Junior Campus. She is a clinical psychologist by profession, and she also works in the capacity of a visiting lecturer at the Institute of Professional Psychology, Bahria University. She has had extensive training and experience in working with children, adolescents, and young adults to facilitate their well-being through an integrative approach. Play therapy is one of the core approaches Amna is trained in, and she is an advocate of the impact play therapy has on each child she closely works with. So say hi to Amna. Next, we have with us Ms. Hamera Khurshid. She has joined us recently in January of this year as our learning and development teacher at the KDA pre and junior campuses. And she helps students who are struggling with academic difficulties or behavioral difficulties on a one-on-one capacity. She is a licensed psychotherapist and counselor in Canada and is also an APA certified behavioral interventionist. She has extensive experience in working in different countries, including Pakistan, Oman, UAE, and Canada. So thank you so much both for being here with us today to talk about today's very important topic, which is addressing parent burnout during the time of a pandemic. COVID has led to an increase in the roles and responsibilities of parents. There's been increased stressors. Parents are struggling to juggle their different roles and responsibilities that now they have on their shoulders, and we can already see in the polls about 54% of our participants have said they are feeling burned out lately. So I will be asking our panelists some questions around this topic, and towards the end, for the last 10 to 15 minutes, we'll also give you a chance to ask your questions, and we will take them and try to answer them in the best way possible. So let's jump right in. And Amna, my first question is to you. In your experience, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on parents, their mental health, and what do we mean by burnout?
Right. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, thank you so much for that question, Areed. And I would like to kind of bridge that to what you just now stated, that how parents have had to take on multiple roles. So it's like they're wearing multiple hats, on the same day at the same time, and catering to a lot of type of responsibilities that have surfaced, which are a part of the circumstances we're all facing at the moment. Globally, this is a global pandemic, and of course, it has taken a toll on many, including parents.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about burnout, it's very important to understand what is the experience of a burnout, because sometimes our bodies, our mind, we experience so much, but more often than not, we're not aware of what to call it. More often than not, we experience it, but not be aware or acknowledge its presence in that moment. And burnout, some of you might be able to say that, yes, we've experienced it. Some maybe have never had the time to even give it a thought of what's happening to me because of the responsibility, because of the hats that you're wearing. And it is important to reflect on your own mind, your own body, and the experience you have day in and day out. Whether there is any form of physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, or emotional exhaustion due to a prolonged exposure to wearing that hat, or multiple hats, as we have said. Basically, burnout is that physical, emotional, as well as mental exhaustion that we experience due to prolonged stress without having any absence of relief. So if you haven't found that relief yet, it might be that that stress, as it is going to keep getting longer and it is going to keep getting more prolonged for you, it might end up in burnout if it hasn't already. And
Hmm.
that is something very important to take away, that have these new roles taken away that window of taking care of yourself,
Hmm.
has that sense of responsibility, that added responsibility of also having to be the teacher for the child now.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the nurse. Pehle to it was very it would be that okay, even for certain cuts and scrapes we would be like okay, we'll just take you to the ER, we'll just get bandaged. It would just come naturally. But
Yeah.
now all of us are so mindful that okay, as much as we could avoid hospitals, clinics, doctors, we must.
Hmm.
Which is why you're also sometimes taking the role of being the nurse in that situation, nursing a wound that your child might have experienced while playing.
Hmm.
So we are aware that you have to do so much now.
Yeah.
But what I would like to offer is that reflecting in this moment of whether or not that impact that we're talking about has been so prolonged that windows of self-care have sort of taken a back seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you brought up a really important point that burnout is not just kind of physical exhaustion, but it also is mental or emotional exhaustion. And I think in our society, particularly, we are so attuned to our body, but we're not very much attuned to our mind and how we're feeling emotionally. So I think it's a very important point to talk about that it's not just we're not just talking about being physically feeling lethargic, but we're also feeling we're talking about feeling mentally tired and mentally exhausted, which brings to my question to Homera. What are some signs of burnout, and what are some things that parents should be looking out for within themselves to become, like Amna was saying, to reflect on whether or not they are reaching a point of burnout? What would you say to parents that they should be looking out for?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you, Arish, for just asking these kind of questions. Definitely, burnout is a question that we are having, like every day. We are having such kind of feeling, like feeling of burnout, feeling of helplessness, and all these kind of a thing, because we are all in a pandemic condition. We are all like not in a regular condition that we are usually. So when we define the burnout, as Amna explained very well, burnout is a process. It's not something that develop overnight. So people usually feel like with the passage of time, the feeling of helplessness and the feeling of fatigue, and they don't understand what exactly. It's a matter of the understanding. That sometimes they don't understand that they are exactly feeling fatigue and helplessness. And sometimes the sign and the symptoms, if they feel that they feel that they are no longer effective for anyone,
Hmm.
like their families, their children, and the whatever they are meeting with anyone. So it's a feeling, and again, it's the feeling of really, really fed up condition where people think that I'm done. I cannot do anything else. So like they feel like over extreme stress. And then finally, when they feel that they are no longer effective for the people, they start emotional distancing. They start avoiding people. They're neglecting their kids, they're neglecting their families, and all these kind of things. So definitely these kind of all the symptoms of the burnout. And during pandemic, it's like 24, they're facing 24/7 challenges in dealing with the families. They are taking care of the family, like the partner, the seniors at home, the kids at home. They are, like Amna said, they play as a role of the nurse, they play as a role of a teacher, a helper, or whatever. So sometimes it's very difficult, especially for the mothers. Definitely, I'm not talking particularly for the fathers or mother, but definitely the mothers who just work 24/7. They work as a cleaner, they work as a cook. It's very hard for them to just take care of their kids and during this pandemic, and then they just started or this they feel like this kind of a stress, overwhelming stress, and they feel like so sometimes depression. It comes with the sleep disturbances, it comes with the acting out behavior. They feel like so aggressive, and they don't aware that why they feel like this kind of a feeling. Sometimes it getting worse, and they neglect their family, and all these things. So these all are the sign and symptoms of the burnout. If the parents feel these kind of a burnout, these kind of a sign and symptoms, definitely they have to look for all these things. They need some kind of they need to seek some kind of a professional help, or the strong social support network. And then definitely they need to discuss all these small things. They have to be aware that how they can just work on all these. So I usually prefer parents to do some kind of a meditation at home, deep breathing, or these, and then discussion is always very good. It's very healthy. So better to discuss with your family members, support group. So these kind of a things, if they can do it,
Thank
that
you.
would be helpful.
So it's more of a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's what you're trying to get at is also that it builds up over time. And I think, Amna, you mentioned to be reflective of whether or not you're reaching that point. So it doesn't end up going to that crisis point. And so some signs and symptoms to look out for are you getting, disturbed in your sleep? Are you not being able to be effective in carrying out your tasks, your roles and responsibilities in the manner that you may want to? So, Humaira, a lot of parents are now having to stay home. They're working, but they're also kind of taking on the role of a teacher as well now because of the digital learning platform, the remote learning. How do you think remote learning specifically is impacting or has impacted our parents?
It's a nice question, because the thing is like, they have to, in a first question, definitely they have to consider the sign and symptoms of burnout, and then it is relatable, because the thing is during pandemic they are so much in stress, especially the pressure on the parents is huge. So they have to be they are facing a lot of challenges when they are doing multitasking duties at home, the kids, the seniors and partners and everything. So when they are when they are working with the kids, and the kids will be on online, definitely it's a huge challenge for the parents. Number one is that they have to look for the any distraction free room for the kids, because sometimes it's very hard, especially in the joint family system, and the people who live in the crowded places, it's very hard to just find out a very quiet place for the kids. They just sit and get their remote learning. And then sometimes it's very hard because the resources are very limited. So that's why the availability of the high-speed internet, the connectivity issues, there are lots of issues that are actually they are facing at the same time. So the other challenge they are facing at this moment is the availability of the devices for each and every child. If the home, like if the parents have 4 kids and they will have a learning at the same time, online classes at the same time in the morning, and if they don't have a device, it's very difficult for them. Sometimes it's very problematic for them to arrange the devices for each and every kid at the same time. And similarly, the parents are play at front with the kids, and that they, especially the mothers, their role is as a good teacher at that moment. So it is very difficult for the parents to just because sometimes the parents don't familiar with the science concept, and the math science. So they have to learn before they have to teach their kids. So it's very hard it's overwhelming. It's very difficult for them to just provide help to their kids. And the other thing is that it's very, some parents are not familiar with the technology. So they don't know how to use the technology, the devices and all these applications. For example, the Google Meet, the Google Classroom. So they have to learn before they're helping their kids. So it's sort of it's a huge challenge for them. And they all,
yeah. And how would you say that's impacting their emotional well-being? So you've described so many different challenges, and I think some parents might find it a little bit of a relief that they're not the only ones going through that there are a lot of different parents who are going through that. And you have experience, and Amna has experience probably with listening to parents talk about all the different difficulties they're having. So what are some emotional challenges of these stressors? These are little things, but they end up accumulating into really big things. So what is that emotional impact on the parents of all of these frustrations.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, after these kind of a things, they become so much exhausted, as Amna explained earlier, because it is a continuous stress, continuous like challenge. That's why they are having a lots of stress all the time. Okay, how they can manage, especially in the morning time, and they are so much in stress. They just try to, and usually some parents, I a personal experience, parents usually try to avoid, log in at that moment. So they feel sometimes they refuse. Okay, I cannot, like, the internet connectivity is a issue. Or sometimes they say that, okay, the electricity outage is there. Sometimes they say that there are lots of reasons, but they cannot explain like very well. Like, it's the communication gap is there, so they need to explain what is having, like, they are having lots of stress. They need to just explain everything.
It gets
So
really overwhelming, and that leads to
yeah, it's overwhelming. It's
breakdown
exhausting
as well.
emotion.
So, Homera, you've described the impact of remote learning on parents. Amna, I want to ask you, what do you think the impact of parent burnout? So, when parents feel exhausted and parents feel emotionally, physically really tired, what is the impact on children, and why do you think it's important to address that?
So if we, before we talk about the impact directly on the child, if we can just talk about how, like we said earlier, that if burnout is not brought to our awareness, if we're not even aware it's happening, more often than not, we won't even know what to do with it. Not finding the relevant channel or outlet for it, which is where I think the very first step can be considered of, if burnout does not find the right channel, because it's an energy, the emotions that we feel, the experiences that we have, they're all these energies we possess. And if our energy does not find the right outlet or right channel, it can definitely, have, like, it can just get displaced with so many other things. Like, imagine, like, an example that Homera just shared, that power outages, internet disconnectivity. Now, if we are not aware that that is what is making us upset, or that is what is bogging us down, then we might not even know what's happening to us, and we might just start, expressing that frustration elsewhere. And the immediate environment that we're in, we might just be throwing it here and there and not really being aware of it. And why are we not aware of it? Because we don't know what's happening to us. So definitely, if we would want the impact of burnout to reduce, be it on ourselves, be it on our children, be it on the environment that we belong to, it must begin with just becoming aware of whether this has been a reality for you. And if yes, then what has been the intensity as well? We are mindful that some parents might feel it lesser, some might feel it more, but it's also to importantly reflect on, not to enter that comparison, just being aware of what it is for you. And I think, why, again, relating it back to the children, we know that kids are like a sponge. So whatever you expose a child to, the good or the bad, they will pick up on it.
Yeah.
And burnout is in that system. Again, not saying that is what you also intended, but if you are experiencing burnout and it has not found its relevant channel or outlet, kids might pick up on it as well, right? The frustrations that you carry, or the just the agitation. It could be anything, any feeling that you possess at that time. And if you feel that it's out there, the child will pick up on it. They're quick to do that. It's like that for them. And I think that is where the impact really comes in. If our burnout doesn't find a channel, how it impacts the kids is, they do pick up on it, and they will not even know what to do with it, to make sense of it. Because I think a lot of parents will relate to this, that when you're having a bad day, you will notice the kids are out here. The kids are more, they want to cling to you more. They want your attention far more. That, mama this, or baba that, like, so you notice that kids, on even your lowest of days, they want you more.
Yeah.
And that's something to pick up on, that has something from the environment really affected the child, that we are seeing it in a dip in their emotions. We're
Hmm.
seeing a roller coaster in their behaviors. Because a child will not come and say to you that, okay, your frustration or, your exhaustion is exhausting me. Child doesn't know how to make sense of that. The child will act out. The child might cry more or get angry more. So
Hmm.
you will see the impact through dip in their emotions and ups and downs in behaviors. That's how it might come up, to witness or to see.
Yeah, and I think because of that, I think a lot of parents naturally, during situations like these, their intuition is and their first go to is to take care of others or to take care of their children. And I think for the reflecting on how important it is for parents to take care of themselves, I think parents don't really realize that. If they take care of themselves inadvertently, they're also taking care of their children. And it's not like self-care isn't selfish, right? It's not just about taking care of yourself, but by taking care of yourself, you're also taking care of your kids and the people around you. So how else would you think, what do you think, are some difficult feelings that are brought up in parents due to homeschooling and due to other stressors, both for parents and children? So we've talked about stress a little bit. What are some other difficult emotions? I think some parents also feel guilt, and that they're not doing enough. What are some other emotions that might come up for some parents that might be important to reflect on?
I think one thing we all have to be very mindful of is that in the face of this pandemic, all of us in our own capacities, and especially the parents,
Hmm.
we are mindful that how things were,
Hmm.
they may not be panning out the same way of how they are.
Hmm.
And sometimes we get lost in that spiral of what used to be versus what is.
Hmm.
And that constant back and forth does lead to those feelings of not doing enough. I used to do this before. Now I'm unable to do it. It's like an internal dialogue that you're having with yourself. And even that can be very exhausting. Like we talked about, that exhaustion is not limited to our body. It's
Hmm.
also how mental and emotional exhaustion can cause even the body to feel exhausted and tired.
Hmm.
So even if you might not have been physically active, but you might be even in a more sitting down position. But if these thoughts are constantly encircling you
Hmm.
about not being enough or doing enough, definitely, definitely that can have a very strong impact on the burnout experience.
Hmm.
And I think one thing that I would lead to from this is that how we model an experience to the children is very important.
Hmm.
So saying that you're overwhelmed or recognizing a stressful situation and having a dialogue about it, like Humaira very rightfully said, that having a dialogue about it can have a cathartic experience for you, yes, but
Hmm.
it can also be a moderate experience for the child,
Hmm.
because they learn that emotional vocabulary from the adults around.
Hmm.
When a parent is able to say that, I feel really overwhelmed, or that I feel a little nervous, or I feel happy, whatever the emotion might be in that moment, be it the positive emotions or the negative emotions. But mostly, if in a stressful situation, if you are able to attach an emotional vocabulary of your own experience, the
Hmm.
child will learn to do it even for their own stressors.
Hmm.
The stresses might be different than ours as adults, absolutely, but they will recognize the notion of learning to cope with it or respond to that situation in a more effective manner. It
Hmm.
might not come out in that behavioral outburst or in that emotional outlet, but it might find a healthier channel.
Hmm. Okay. And so we've touched upon something important where you're talking about, modeling, being able to verbalize how you're feeling so that your child is also able to verbalize it. And that automatically helps you take care of the impact that burnout is having. Homera, I'd like to ask you, can you give our parents some other practical strategies on how they can cope with remote learning so that they don't end up reaching that point of burnout? And what do you think is the role of routine, structures, setting limits, and coping with remote learning? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's again, it's a very important thing that parents need to understand. Now they understood about the burnout and emotional, the feeling of helplessness, and lots of emotional concerns, and how like Amna explained that how they can relate all these things with the child, and then it automatically transfer to the child, and they're just communicating with each other in the emotional language. Whatever Amna explained, it is very good thing. So in that way, if in connection to all these things, I just wanted to say some kind of a practical strategies. So whenever I just suggest all the parents, all the students, because the students are from the juniors, so I always explain them that they need to just uh, you know vent out all these kind of a feeling. So they need to explain it. They need to, like, whether in a vocab, we can just give them a vocabulary or something like that, whatever I'm gonna explain, but it is very healthy for them to just express their feelings in a meaningful way. So in that way, the parents will understand, and the other people will understand how the child feels at that moment, because they are having lots of troubles in remote learning, such as I already explained, that they will have a internet connection issues, or maybe some kind of a trouble, like internet troubleshooting issues or whatever. So at that moment, the child needs to explain everything in a meaningful way. So that kind of a discussion is always very healthy. They can easily, like, just get rid of all these kind of a stress at the moment. And the practical strategies I would explain to the parents that for the remote learning, if the child has having lots of trouble in remote learning, that definitely they have to just, first of all, if possible, don't let your kid these time as a vacation time. This is very much important step, because this is not a vacation. This is remote learning, just because of the need of the today's like pandemic condition. It is safer for the kids that they can just take the classes online or remote learning. So it is the betterment for the kids, for the parents, for the families, definitely. So just be aware and just let your kids, okay, explain everything, that this is your not a vacation time, this is a remote learning time. Be aware of, be mindful of all these things, and choose a quiet place for the learning, because I explained already, because sometimes the kids live in a very joint family system. They don't have a proper place. So assign them a very specific area where they can just get, if possible. I know it's very hard for the parents to find out these kind of thing in very like different families, a different situation. But if you have a resources, please identify any or assign any specific area for your kids, where they can just sit and they get the remote learning, because it is very much healthy for them. They need to understand, okay, this is my place and I need to just start my learning here. And the second thing is that time management is a key of success. Definitely, we all know from the very beginning that time management is very much important. Time management includes everything: the scheduling of your learning time, scheduling whatever you are doing at home, with a limited break time, including the restroom breaks or the snack break or whatever. And just encourage your kids, especially the junior kids, fourth and fifth graders, just encourage them to just make their own timetable according to their whatever they are, because let them make the responsibility of everything. They have to take the responsibility. So ask them to just make their timetable and put on the walls near to the remote, where they are just having online classes, and give them alarm clock, especially for the morning classes. That is very much important, because grade 5 and grade 4 students are very much smart. They know how to use the alarm clock and all devices, electronic devices. So encourage them to take the responsibility, that they have to just wake up every day 8:30 for the online class, and they have to set their time like by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They can do it, and encourage them, reinforce them, whatever they are doing, the like positive strategies, just reinforce them.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that they just encourage them to get ready the material ahead of time, whatever they need to discuss during the remote learning time with the teacher and all these peers. So that kind of a thing they have to prepare ahead of time, put the all questions on that sheet, and then get the ready all the material, pencil, razor, whatever. Whenever the teacher asks something, they will have everything ready and they will just write it down there. So it's very easy for them to understand, to just track their everything. So it's like, it will not give them a burden. It's something that they will really enjoy online learning at that moment. Um, and the final thing is that if possible, encourage your child, because I know it is very difficult time. The children are not having a like a face-to-face interaction with the other peers and the kids, and they really miss at this point. So just encourage them to just connect with each other, because the connectivity, the feeling of connection is always very healthy. Like us, they need social support. They need these kind of a support. So they need some time with their peers to discuss, to exchange the ideas, they exchange the homework assignments and everything. It will be easier for them to understand what is happening in the online class. And that is very healthy even for the parents. So that at that time, I just always just encourage your kids, boost them, that they have to just connect with the other people, like whatever medium you can easily afford, no problem, whatever. But the idea behind is they need to connect with other people. This is very much important.
Okay, so you've highlighted some very, very important strategies for remote learning, and I'll just summarize it a little bit. I think some of the things that you've talked about are structuring, so having a structure to the day, not treating it as a vacation time and trying to create a sense of normalcy of what an ordinary day before the pandemic would look like, and having that very structured way of going about your day. So you give them an alarm clock so that they're, and kind of fostering that sense of responsibility, especially in older kids, giving them an alarm clock or a gadget that would be able to help them get up early in the morning. I think a lot of times what's happening is also that kids are just getting up and joining classes without really kind of getting into the mind frame of classes. When they would come to traditional schooling, when they'd come to school, they'd already have had breakfast, they've washed their face, they've dressed up. And I think a lot of experts are also saying that create and try to do as things as much as possible the way you were doing before. So don't like kind of just wake your kids up 5 minutes before the class and sit them in front of a computer and expect them to engage in an effective manner, because their brain hasn't woken up yet if they're just sitting there 5 minutes before the class. So give them some time to have breakfast, to maybe if it helps them let them have a shower, or just give them some time to be able to get ready to actually engage in effectively in learning. And somebody has made a comment here which is really, I think it's a really good comment. So they've said that I had started feeling overwhelmed with all the burden physically and emotionally, but I googled and found a good write-up. My daughter and I now have many joint accounts in our family bank. So I think it's a really, really cute way. They've got a cuddle account, a playtime account, a sleep account, an unscheduled time account. So whenever either of us feels an account is running low, we refill it. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way of connecting with your kids and being attuned to your children's needs. What are they telling you? And not just your children's needs, but I think your own needs. Are you feeling low on um, you know are you feeling low on love, so, or needing like physical comfort, so you can refill your cuddle account? Are you feeling low on joy, so you can refill your playtime account? I think that's a really, really good way of managing your day, and a really helpful and playful way of doing it. We have a question here from a parent. How about when a child gets overwhelmed explaining such issues, how should we teach child to respond instead of react? And I think, Amna, you work a lot with younger lot as well, with the junior school kids. So what are your some tips and tricks to help children? You were talking about helping children express their emotions. So what would your advice be for parents to help their kids talk about their feelings and to respond instead of react?
So I think if we can just, so one thing that I would like to bridge with the comment earlier as well about the joint account, it was such a ideal analogy because you know how earlier we even talked about how the parent experience is directly linked with the child's experience. So I would take that same analogy to also answer this question about how we could teach the child to respond versus react. I would ask or invite you to engage in maybe activities or role plays where the child can see it as a modeled experience. One thing that I have really observed in all this time is that when you tell a child something versus when you show a child something, there's a there's a vast difference in the experience they take away. Because when you tell the child that, okay, I would want you to pick up your shoes and put it right there, and when you show it to them that, okay, this is how we have to do it together, so come, let's do it once together, and then you could do it next time. In that way, the child embodies that experience. So maybe you could engage the child in activities of storytelling or even through play, any type of play that the child likes to do, using that as a medium to put across that message that you wish to. It could be done through a character of their favorite movie. It could be through puppet play. It could be through, just any activity of engagement. And it doesn't have to be very direct that, okay, you have to do this. Maybe talking about, there's this character who does this. What do you think about it? And you're automatically letting those sparks in the brain kind of, come about of problem solving, of processing it, instead of it being just told to the child. And it has a very strong impact on how the child, through the brain, processes that information. And these playful activities allow it to happen in a very, it's very less demanding for the child that you have to do it, versus this is something we can do together. Having that togetherness or the joint experience, I will definitely say that is where the impact would lie. I am mindful it is not going to happen in one try. So consistently exposing the child to that, that message that you really want the child to take away, or the act that you really want the child to adopt, consistency in exposing the child with opportunities to even exercise it. Because I am mindful once or twice, it may not just happen. It takes time. It's time give in. That would be very important. Because sometimes we are able to, carry out certain strategies till a certain time, but then it tends to wear off. And I am mindful it's not easy. But if you could just, push it through enough that it becomes a learned response for the child. Because it takes time for it to be a learned response.
Absolutely. And I think some other things, some other strategies to helping a child respond rather than react is to kind of help them think about one activity that you can Google is the mind jar or the glitter jar, and that jar is filled with lots and lots of glitter, and then you shake the jar and you tell the parent, you tell the child, look, this is your brain. And when your brain gets all shaken up and you're feeling so many overwhelming feelings, your brain is all over the place. So you have to let the glitter settle, and you can, watch the glitter settle. And when we allow our brain to settle a bit, when we allow the glitter and the dust to settle, then if we respond, then we can respond in an effective manner when our brain is not so cloudy. So if you've got children who are really into creative, arts and crafts, I would encourage you to look up the recipe of glitter jars and do those activities with your children, so they can teach on how to so you can teach them how to be able to respond to their emotions in an effective manner. We have a question here from a parent, and the question is, what are some ways of taking care of yourself first? And this is a question that we had in here as well. That what are some practical tips that parents can use to address burnout and take care of themselves? And I would like to mention here, Anna, is also that some parents are working parents. So if you could also give some strategies around how to do that if they're also working but also taking care of their kids at home. So what are some strategies would you say?
So, like Ms. Humaira has already highlighted the importance of routine, the importance of boundaries. I am mindful that that is something that she's already introduced. But one thing that I would like to add to that strategy is, in that routine, again, allowing some time to kick in for your self-care as well. Because we've been talking about the relationship of our own experience of exhaustion and burnout with so many other things that we're associated with. So in that routine where you're structuring the day for your child, I would also invite you to allow a pocket of self-care to come in, where it is not for anybody else. It is not that, okay, I love cooking, so I will cook because हाँ सबने खाना तो खाना है. Not with that intention, but if cooking is what relaxes you, then doing it because it relaxes you. And not feeling guilty about taking that time out for yourself. And self-care it doesn't have to be for hours and hours. I am mindful. The practicality of it has to be attached to the day-to-day demands. So what I would like to say is that you can even just dedicate minimum 15 minutes for yourself. It could be to, just take a walk in the garden, or to just sit by the window and sip a nice warm cup of tea without having that clutter of thoughts encircle your mind. 15 minutes. If you could find a pocket just by yourself, for yourself. I think that is one thing I would say is practically possible, considering the time is not a very expensive one, but it will leave you with a good feeling. It will rejuvenate your energy. Additionally, something that you could practice in that time that you take for yourself, that 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever time you dedicate, it could be more as well. This is an activity which we call engagement through the five senses. So something that really soothes the mind and the body is to, when you're taking that time out and you're just sitting, trying to relax, noticing your environment. You can just pick any one object from your environment, or just scan the room that you belong to at that time and see the vibrant colors that surround you. Are there different smells that your nose is picking up on, different sounds that you hear, some things that you can find that you can touch, different textures, smooth or rough. And is there something that you could taste at that time? Maybe a cup of tea, some food, fruit, anything that is relaxing for you. Engagement through the five senses is literally activating all five of our senses, because these are the senses which are also getting overwhelmed. They are the output and input of our stressor. It is through these five senses that we take stress. When we hear sounds of someone yelling or screaming or fighting in the other room, the kids are like, okay, no, this is my crayon. No, this is my crayon. The sight of something which is obviously stressful. Anything of that sort. We are mindful that we engage through the environment, through these senses. So we use these senses to relax the body, which has gotten distressed. And it literally is a 15-minute activity. And I invite all of you to practice this. And I give you my word, it is an experience which really opens up an horizon of just, allowing that glitter to settle, as Anish said. We want the kids to kind of let that glitter to settle as well in that jar. This activity would allow you to do that as well. Yeah, you are.
I think what's a really important thing that you pointed out is that self-care doesn't have to be like hours and hours of sitting down and doing things for yourself. It can be, and I think self-care has become such a buzzword that you hear it and you kind of start feeling a little bit anxiety about it, because then you expect to do some really out of the box things. But it literally is just
Ah,
about taking maybe 5-10 minutes out of your day and feeling not any form of guilt about doing that, because you deserve to be able to take care of yourself. And I think a lot of parents might find some relief in hearing that it's okay to want to be away from everyone, from your kids, and not want to see their faces for 10 minutes. I think it doesn't make you a bad parent. You just
not
have
at all.
a good enough parent, and taking care of yourself is a significant part of that. Homera, do you have any other strategies that you would like to add that you think might be helpful for parents to take care?
Yeah, this Amina already mentioned all these kind of because the parents need to understand that definitely our mind is connected to our body. So body gets so much fatigued out, and that's why it has impact on the mind. And if mind is so much stressed out, definitely it impacts on the body. So the people can change lots of physiological changes like heart rate and blood pressure, and all these kind of a physiological complaints after this kind of a stress. So they need to just like deep muscle relaxation. They just have to, like, there are lots of audios and videos available on the Google and the YouTube, that they can just practice all these kind of things. So these relaxation exercises, the breathing exercise, connecting with the environment. Like Amna said, that if we can connect ourselves with the environment, we will feel like so much comfortable and relaxed. So just try to do these kind of exercises. And one more thing, I always encourage the communication is very much important. If you have a good communication with your partner, any family member, any friend, if you feel so much stressed out, you need to just call a friend or maybe anyone you're comfortable with, just vent it out. Just get rid of all these kind of feelings, because otherwise it will just pile up in your body, your brain, and everything, and it will gives you the reaches to the condition of the exhaustion, which is not good at that moment. And then eventually you will feel like burnout condition. So just when you feel these kind of stresses, just start discussing all these things. Reach to the if you feel that it is over stressed and nobody can help in this manner, so better to just seek any kind of professional help. No problem. It is not a big deal. Like, it's not that you are feeling like mental or something like that. No, it's like we are human. We have emotions, so we have to just help. We need a help of all these things.
Hmm. Okay, thank
One
you.
thing I would like to add, Reach, is one thing that you shared about working parents and how we could facilitate through a strategy that they income, kind of give focus to their work as well, but also have the kids settled and satisfied. I think one thing that comes up very strongly is allowing children to also practice more independent play, because some feedback that we do receive is that the child wants to play, but they want the presence of the parent. And I am mindful that for parents who are working parents, that becomes a little bit of a toss up, because giving that same time is difficult on some days. So here you could facilitate independent play, and
Hmm.
also introducing the concept of like a buddy system. Like if the child has older siblings or younger siblings, if there is an equation of siblings, or if you're in a joint system, then cousins, allowing the older ones to be like that buddy system for the younger ones. So when they're doing their homework, maybe the younger ones can sit with them. When they're cleaning up their room, they could clean it up as well. So allowing the siblings to be like a buddy system for the younger ones especially. So if there are parents who are facing that concern as well, this is one way where some relief could be found. They would of course supervise the kids. I am aware that that would happen, that there would be still some supervision that would be needed, but it may not be consistently overlooking every activity throughout. So
Yes.
this is another way that this could be achieved. And when the child actually completes a task or accomplishes what you had set out for them, celebrating it, making a big deal about it, because that is what will reinforce the behavior. Because if they said that, oh, I made my bed today, celebrate that with them, that you made your bed by yourself, because that would be a reinforcement for the child. And the next day he would want to do it again. So finding these moments of reinforcing these behaviors or these acts and turning them into a celebration, because it would allow these behaviors to then get repeated and reinforced.
Okay. All right. So we have one question here, and it says, sometimes day ends, but kids aren't satisfied with how they have spent it, no matter what efforts we do to engage them. They need outdoor time. They need to physically interact with their friends and cousins. They no longer want to study online. How can we deal with these challenges? So, who would like to answer this question?
I would like to say that definitely it is challenging. It is very challenging for the kids, for the parents too, because they get so much frustrated because they are sitting for so long, like 5 or 4 months during this pandemic, when the pandemic started, like the beginning of this year or at the end of last year. It is too much for the kids because they have too much physical energy. They have like so much. They are not like us. They have like too many things in their mind. So it is very difficult for them to just sit at home and just do the interacting through these mediums or other things. I know it's very frustrating, but the thing is that right now we have to just explain our like kids in a meaningful way because they need logic. We should explain that this is for their safety. Actually, this is the matter of the safety because the pandemic is everywhere. It's sort of baba and like it's something like they can easily infect it because they are very young. So the physical interaction is somewhat it's a difficult decision. Definitely, it's a parent's decision. We cannot say anything, but like we have to just give some kind of a logics to the students or your kids that why we are at home just because of this, and if they really like persistently say, okay, no, we want to go outside. So need to ask them what kind of a SOPs they really want to follow if they will go outside. So these kind of things they should keep in their mind, and you need to discuss like on and off with the kids that what kind of a challenge. I know it's very frustrating. You need to just answer your kids at the moment. So maybe they can just get rid of this kind of stress.
And I think there are some other ways to meaningfully do that as well, so that instead of them meeting physically, you can have them meet or digitally or remotely, and then have them do something physical together remotely. So let's say their friends are into, I don't know, dancing or whatever, then they can do like a dance party on on video call together, get a few of the friends together on video call and get like a dance party going, or get them to work out together. So it doesn't really, it doesn't solve the problem of them physically interacting, but it does solve the problem of them being physically and socially active at the same time. And again, there's some other ways to do it as well, is like safely, if you can keep like 6-8 feet apart and meeting like at a, a lot of people are going to sea view now to do cycling and all of that. So doing that at a safe distance, but also just like, passing by their friend's house and waving at them, or just kind of those kind of things that are possible. And I think Homera is absolutely right, having those conversations with them again and again about why it's so important. And I think what's really important is also to validate their feelings and not dismiss them, and not say not get fed up by them complaining about it, because naturally they will start to get fed up of staying at home and being away from their parents, away from their friends. So again and again you might need to kind of just you know validate that it is very difficult to be away from their friends, and not saying stuff like कि बस बहुत ज़्यादा बार बार बोल रहे हो, बस अब बंद करो बोलना इसको, so not kind of dismissing their concerns and their feelings. Amna, did you have anything to add to that question?
I think to add to what you already shared about how we could, in a digital capacity, have a party or an interaction with the younger lot, especially, making it more creative by why don't you decide the theme for it this week and your friends can decide it for next week. Maybe they could send out a digital invite for it. So again, something so basic could be made into a celebratory act for them, so that it feels like, okay, I can design the card that we will, WhatsApp on the group, for example. They could decide the theme. It could be dance, it could be playing charades together. It could be who can dribble the basketball the fastest, So again, it's a physical act. There's a little bit of that competition going on. The kids, even when they're playing, they do it. Or anything which parents are able to accommodate within their resources, but giving the child choices, how they would want this to be, allowing their choice to kind of come about as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we've had a really, really great discussion today about how to address parent burnout, how to cope with the stresses of the pandemic, and how to help children cope with the stresses of the pandemic. And I think we can go on forever and ever, but we are out of time. So I'm just going to quickly summarize and say in one sentence, it's okay to feel like you are having an experience of burnout. A lot of parents are feeling that way, and according to our poll today, about 60% of the parents who are present today have said that they are feeling burned out. Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions. So we are going to end now. And if there are questions, I do see one question here that we haven't been able to answer. So just feel free to email us and we'll get back to you about that. I just wanted to remind everyone again that we are having a senior school parent webinar next week, and for preschool parents as well. So if you have your kids in those campuses, do join us next week. And thank you so much, Amna and Humaira, for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us today. And thank you so much to our parents for being here today. We hope that this was helpful for you and you were able to take away some helpful tips and tricks to be able to take care of yourself. So thank you, everyone. And I hope everyone has a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Arish. Thank you for everything today.
All right. Stop us, everyone.